Hello and welcome to episode 40 of our 2-Minute Tuesday series. This is a special episode because I will be talking about one of my favorite free tools for Dynamics 365. The tool is called Snapshot, and it was created by a company called Cobalt, more specifically a Microsoft Dynamics 365 MVP named Michael Ox. Mike and Aiden, who's also an MVP, created a tool that essentially allows us to recover data that we deleted in Dynamics 365 online. If you're on premise, obviously you have a little bit more control over your data. You have backups. You have the abilities to take your own backups. You have the ability to restore your own backups quickly if you delete something by mistake. But online we have a problem, which is the databases are stored on a data center behind the scenes. And if you delete something and you realize too late, you have to sort of open a ticket and get that information restored, which is a problem. So Mike and Aiden decided to create a tool that, from what I understand, on its initial version, relied on the audit log information to be able to recover data from its original or from the deletion state into its original state. Now, the way it worked, it was, you have to be auditing a record. So when you deleted, all of the information on the fields of that record are captured on the audit log, and then a new record can be created with that information. It didn't work 100% of the time. I remember using it and it worked for the most part, but it didn't work perfectly. However, the latest version of Snapshot works great, and I wanted to show it to you today. So before we actually use Snapshot, the first step is obviously to download it from the website. So go into the link, see the description below for the link, download the solution and import it into Dynamics 365. What the solution will do is that it's going to add a section within settings, and you can see it's called Cobalt Snapshot in there. Now, before we actually are able to restore records that we deleted, the first thing we have to do is we have to configure. And here's, if I had some feedback, I guess, for Mike, when it comes to this solution, is the thing that makes it confusing if you're trying to learn this on your own is that first, before you get started, you have to go to this section called Snapshot Instructions. Really, it's not really instructions. It's more like settings, snapshot settings. I would say it makes a little bit more sense, because what we're trying to do is, I'm going to click on it, is you need to sort of create the rules of the game. What are the entities that you're willing to recover in case you delete them? So we're going to click on new to add a new instruction or setting, and you can see how Dynamics starts loading up the entities that are available in the system. Now I have a trial environment. This doesn't have any custom entities or anything like that. This is just out of the box. So in this case, let's just use contacts as an example. So let me add that. Okay. And then we're going to select contact from the list. So I'm going to type contact again. Okay. And there it is, and select the entity that I want. Now notice that on the right hand side, on step number 3, you are asked if you want to exclude any fields for any reason. Now I haven't found the reason why I don't want to save specific fields, but just in case, if you want to do that, you can add the fields in here to exclude when you're cloning records, or when you are essentially able to bring back a record that you deleted. And again, this, even though on the first version it worked connected to the audit functionality, it no longer does that. Audit right now is off in my solution, and Snapshot will work just fine. So as you can see, I have enabled Snapshot for the contact entity. So let's go and give it a shot. So we're going to navigate to Sales, Contacts, and let's just pick somebody, let's say Andrew Dixon right here as an example. It's just any record, really, it doesn't matter. We're going to click delete and go ahead and delete the contact completely. Now, you have to be careful about deletion, because out of the box, relationship behavior, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, relationship behavior will really eliminate any records that are below it, any child records. So if I delete a contact, if there are any opportunities or cases or phone calls, appointments, things like that connected to this contact, they'll be wiped out as well. Now, the beauty about Snapshot is that if it's enabled for the entities that are below it, you can actually recover all of them. There's a deep rollback option that will allow you to recover all the child records that were deleted as part of the deletion of, in this case, the contact. So that's really useful. Okay, so the contact is gone, it's deleted, obviously. So we're going to go back and go into our recycling bin. And you can see that Andrew Dixon is populated in the recycling bin. Now, if I open it up, let me show you the buttons. You have a rollback option, which is essentially to restore the record you deleted, and then deep rollback, which is the option I just talked about, in which you're able to bring back the child records that were deleted as part of the deletion of the contact on the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and click rollback. We didn't configure it for child records yet. This is just a test just for you to see it. And as soon as we click on the rollback button and accept the changes, we just have to wait a couple seconds while, essentially Snapshot is doing its thing, is recreating the record behind the scenes, and it will immediately navigate you back to the contact that you had. You can see that we have, all of the original information with it, when the contact was created, which is today at 9:58, and it was created by the system because, again, Snapshot is running on behalf of the system. You have all of the information in here. Obviously, if we had enabled the child records in that point, all of the activities will be here, notes, all that stuff will be recovered, which is great. But once again, this is sort of a fallback in case you delete data that you didn't want to remove on the first place. You're able to go to the recycling bin and recover it from there. Some people would say, well, but it would be maybe better to restore the database. The problem is that when you delete data, sometimes you don't remember when you deleted it, right? You might realize that a record is gone 2 weeks after it was gone. And what are you going to do at that point? Are you going to go back and restore a 2-week-old database? And what happens to all of the records that you entered over the last 2 weeks? What if it was 2 months? So the recycling bin gives you an option to go back and pick the record that you want and restore that single record rather than going back and restore them all. Now, again, there's a whole discussion about whether you should allow people to delete records to begin with. Obviously, as a best practice, I don't like to do that. We talk about that on episode 19 of the CRM MVP podcast, where we talk about how do you set up security like an MVP. And one of the rules was you don't allow people to delete. That's what you do. But in case this is, again, a fallback, in case it happens, in case an administrator goes in there and deletes something by mistake, having a recycling bin in Dynamics 365 Online is a huge help. This is why the Snapshot utility from Mike and Aiden is one of my favorite tools, or one of my favorite free tools for Dynamics 365, and I 100% recommend it. I hope you enjoyed this week's tip. We'll see you next week.